the United States has not won was the war in Vietnam and the current war going on right now in Afghanistan. And these two wars are eerily similar. I believe in Vietnam, we were defending the freedom of the South Vietnamese from the communist North Vietnamese. And not just that, we were making our own country here at home safe from one of the biggest threats the United States has ever had to deal with, which is that of growing communism. And just as back then, today, we are dealing with another one of the biggest threats that the United States has ever had to deal with, which is that of terrorism. I believe also we're defending the freedom of the people of Afghanistan. The Taliban and Al-Qaeda and other various terrorist groups have controlled that country, and we are defending them. And I believe we abandoned the people of Vietnam prematurely, and I believe we're about to do the same thing to the people of Afghanistan. According to NBC News, 60% of Americans say that the war in Afghanistan is not worth fighting. I believe that many people do not know what soldiers go through on the front lines, and I believe many people do not know what soldiers like all of you have gone through on those very front lines. I believe only if you're actually there can you get a full grip of the true purpose of a war and what it means to fight. And I believe the closest we could come to that is reports from those actual front lines, from those actual soldiers, and various other sources. So in this informative speech, I will inform this local veterans group about the happenings in the ongoing war in Afghanistan. First, I will inform you about our latest plans for Afghanistan. Second, I will inform you of the setbacks we face in Afghanistan. And third, I will inform you of the recent shootings that have occurred in Afghanistan. So first, I will talk about our latest plans for Afghanistan. Militarily, our strategy to pacify insurgents in the Helmand and Kandahar provinces has been a huge success. When President Barack Obama took office, he immediately ordered a troop surge to the country of Afghanistan of 10,000 soldiers. And with that troop surge, we were able to undo two of the strongest regions that the Taliban controlled, two of the strongest strongholds, which is the Helmand and Kandahar provinces. And not just that, we were also able to undo one of the biggest drug trades that this country has. The Taliban pay off government officials and also fuel their terrorist activities with the opium that they grow in these two regions. And with that, we have crippled many key leaders, crippling the Taliban and Al-Qaeda's ability to function in this region. And with the recent success, the United States Army has planned withdrawals. And the first one was on June 22nd of 2011 when President Barack Obama announced that 10,000 soldiers would be pulled out. And an additional 25,000 will be pulled out by the summer of 2012, which is coming up. And the ultimate plan is for all United States Army troops to be pulled out by the end of 2014. And the goal is for Afghan forces to take lead responsibility of police actions by the end of 2014 by the time we leave. And the Afghan Army's goal of 134,000 recruits signing up was surpassed with 143,000 citizens signing up in service to their country. This was a huge success. Prior to our intervention in Afghanistan, the Afghan people literally had no military. Their country was controlled by terrorist groups such as the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And now they have a military. And this is a huge success. So these are our latest plans for the war in Afghanistan. Next, I will talk about the setbacks we faced in the country of Afghanistan. Probably the number one problem that we face is not the fighting itself, but that of government corruption. All the focus has been on the fighting, while from within the nation of Afghanistan is totally corrupt. An example of this corruption is government officials only get paid a couple $100s a month, yet they drive around with security somehow and expensive motorcades. They pay for all this from money that they receive from terrorist groups, and the terrorist groups receive this money from the drug trade, such as growing opium. Afghanistan, in fact, sells 90% of the world's opium. And this is a huge problem. Like I said, all the focus has been on the fighting, while from within, the actual infrastructure of Afghanistan is corrupt. And this is just one of the setbacks we face. One of the more recent setbacks occurred just last month in the recent shooting spree that occurred in Afghanistan, that occurred in the Panjwai region of Kandahar, Afghanistan. In response to the recent shootings, government officials went to the region to try to ease tensions with the Afghan people, but local Taliban slaughtered these officials when they went to visit. And with that, the Afghan Taliban have actually stopped ongoing negotiations with the United States. And with these recent shootings, it could force a quicker withdrawal from the region, which is a huge setback for us, because it could cause us to leave prematurely. So these are a few of the setbacks that we face with the ongoing conflict in Afghanistan. Next, I will inform you on the recent mass murders that have occurred in Afghanistan. On the early Sunday morning of March 11, 2012, in the Afghanistan province of Kandahar, 16 civilians were killed and 5 others were wounded by an American soldier. The leading suspect in the investigation of these shootings is a man by the name of Staff Sergeant Robert Bales. According to reports, a heavily armed United States soldier left Camp Ballenby prior to midnight wearing night vision goggles. He also had on traditional Afghan clothing over his traditional ISAF Army uniform. The killings actually occurred in 2 places, to the north of the outpost and to the south of the outpost. And in fact, he actually returned to the base between shootings, told someone what he had done, but they took it off as a joke and didn't believe him. An Afghan guard actually reported seeing a United States Army soldier come onto the base at 1:30 a.m. And a different Afghan guard reported seeing a United States soldier leave the base at 2:30 a.m. And a total, as I said, was 16 Afghan civilians were killed, along with 5 others wounded, 11 of which were from the same family. And these 11 bodies were burned by the suspect in question after the shootings. And early the next morning, the suspect in question was found crawling back to the base, and where he was disarmed without incident and laid down his weapon without a fight. And he said 3 simple words: "I did it." And then he was taken into custody. Local Afghani witnesses say that they saw multiple shooters, in fact, and actually saw helicopter support helping out these shootings. But when the UN went to investigate this, they interviewed local Afghanis, and they came to the conclusion that these were false and that there was only one shooter in these recent shootings. And with that, Staff Sergeant Robert Bales was flown out of the country of Afghanistan, where he was flown to Kuwait, and now where he was flown to the United States, where he is being held in solitary confinement at a disciplinary barracks at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, where he is to await trial. And the man that plans to defend him is a man by the name of John Henry Brown. And he plans to put the entire Afghan war on trial. He plans to question the reason why we're over there, the reason why we're fighting, and the reason why we have been there so long. And with that, these are the recent mass murders that have occurred in Afghanistan. So in this informative speech, I have informed this local veterans group about the happenings in the ongoing war in Afghanistan. First, I informed you of our latest plans for Afghanistan. Second, I informed you of the setbacks we face in Afghanistan. And third, I informed you of the recent mass murders that have occurred in Afghanistan. So let us remember Vietnam. I believe we abandoned those people prematurely. Hopefully history doesn't repeat itself.